on the last episode of the podcast.
Bad decisions, bad choices. Yeah, and this is also part of what went wrong.
So obviously it's been hemorrhaging players since day one, but yeah, I mean, part of the reason why it's losing its audience as quickly as it is and why it's not retaining new players is because of shit like this.
Yeah, so let's officially get into what the heck went wrong. Where did it all go downhill? It's not news. It's utterly nonsense.
So we've already talked extensively about how, you're comparing every fighting game to Super Smash Bros., which obviously has this staying power for a good reason. A big problem with MultiVersus is that really didn't do anything new with that formula. You can obviously have your standout fighter games that aren't Smash Bros., but MultiVersus really never did much to get beyond its initial concept. It had an okay foundation, it had good fighters, it had good characters, we've said that, but, it lacked really any depth beyond that. There was really nothing that made it stand apart beyond that. Very formulaic.
Well, you know what it is? The gameplay mechanics, for me, like you said, didn't really innovate the whole platform fighting thing, but not just that. They were all worse to me. Like, originally when we talked about it, I complained about the dodging mechanic.
Right.
Now, it's not infinite, but it's on, this stamina meter.
If you know how to use it, it's basically infinite. I mean...
It can be abused,
yeah,
because if you touch the ground, the stamina meter recharges, and there's a double jump. If you have a full stamina meter, you can keep dodging in the air, and you can use that to keep doing up air attacks or things like that. So someone can, juggle you in the air, and you keep getting, what is it called, stun locked? You keep getting stun locked, and it's there's nothing you can do except try to jump up on the screen and away from them, but you can also end up knocking yourself out of the arena if you jump up too high. So it's just things like that piss me off. I don't like that mechanic. Clinging to the wall instead of the edge, I always thought was weird. I did get used to it, but it seems odd to me. And not having a neutral attack button, just pressing the attack and having it not be the charge one, just like a regular one like Smash has, as well as the side attack. I don't know what to call it, forward or back hits.
Side
just
bait.
with the regular attack button and not the special attacks. That was something I kept missing. So almost in every aspect, it felt worse to play than Smash Brothers. So it was still okay. So I'm okay, I can deal with it, but it's still worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the gameplay in a nutshell. It's it is a Smash clone to some extent, but it also really doesn't do much beyond that. At best, it's a worse version of Smash, right?
Yeah. So something I wanted to throw in here that I actually forgot to mention, the ranked mode. There's issues with the ranked mode that I think may have also killed some of the hype that there could have been for this game in terms of the competitive side to it, the competitive community. So the way ranked works is, unlike most games where you do a series of placement matches, I know for a game like Rocket League, you play 10 matches, and then based on how well you do in those, it will give you a rank that you're then put in, and then you play the games to rank up from there. But instead what this game does is, at the start of every season, no matter how skilled you are, it plops everybody into the bottommost rank, bronze, and then you have to linearly grind your way up from that rank, meaning you have to just keep playing match after match after match to get, I think it's something called RP, I guess that's ratings points or rank points, whatever. So you get rank points after each win. And once you get to silver, so once you get out of bronze, you can start losing rank or ratings points every time you lose. But so the thing is, since everyone is starting in bronze, you're not necessarily playing someone who's a bottom rank bronze skill level. You could be playing against someone who's actually diamond, but they just happen to be starting out playing in bronze. So it matches people based on MMR, which in this game is, I don't know exactly how it's calculated. There's a Reddit post here that says it's putting together a bunch of feedback on ranked. It says matchmaking is done by MMR, which is skill rating plus win-loss streak. So however that's calculated, it's almost like whenever you play ranked, you're playing up against someone who is either like at your skill level no matter what, or better. And I felt that when I was playing it. It's like every match is tough, but I'm at the bottom of the ranks. It doesn't make any sense.
So, yeah, I mean, my understanding with the whole thing was they really don't take, number of games played or anything like that into account. It's really just your win-loss percentage, and they basically pair you with some... Like, you could have a 50% win percentage, meaning you win as many as you lose, and have played 5 games, but also have... You could also be paired against someone who's played, 5,000 games with the same win-loss percentage, and obviously has a lot more experience, has played a lot tougher opponents. So, in practice, it's like, you're really not playing with your skill level consistently. You're going to be playing from... you could be playing someone who is ridiculously, someone who could be competing in an actual, ranked competition here versus someone who literally just picked up the game. So it's a deeply flawed system, which, look, again, as of the release of this podcast, which they've made it pretty clear they're not making any changes.
Yeah, they're done.
They still haven't fixed this very obvious gap that seems to be one of the lingering points of contention from the main release.
Usually I don't play ranked in games because I just like to mess around, but another reason we played ranked sometimes is because it's the only mode in which you actually get a guaranteed rematch.
Right.
So I started playing it for that reason, and I mainly played ones in ranked. So getting through bronze up to silver was painful for exactly the reasons I stated, and it just shouldn't be that way. It should be you play your placement matches, and then you get plopped into, the rank that you should be starting at. And that would have made a lot more sense. But instead, they wanted to make it more grindy because, I don't know why. Artificial way to pump up the engagement.
Yeah, so...
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and, I think we talked about this earlier in the pod, but... a big difference between the beta and the main release is that, you sort of lose that incentive to rematch someone in normal gameplay. And I don't know if there was necessarily something keeping people engaged in the old version, but it just seemed like, from game to game, you were going to get at least one rematch. You wanted a best of 3. I think they did have a best of 3 system in there, and you could basically concede or quit or something if you didn't want to continue. But anyway, I think that's part of the reason they brought in ranked mode in the first place, was to try to incorporate that versus more casual gameplay with the standard matchups. But yeah, it obviously fell flat. It obviously is a downgrade from the beta release.
Yep.
So we also, I don't think we mentioned the artwork specifically throughout this, but I mean, the fact that you do have this more broad appeal aesthetic, it works to some extent. I understand why they used it, but for some characters, it's just really clashing with what they're trying to look like,
Yeah, here's what we mean exactly. So when you play, once again, I'm just going to keep comparing it. When you play Super Smash Brothers, and you look at all the characters, how do they look? Do they look weird? Do they look funny, different than how they're supposed to? No, they look almost pretty much exactly like they do in their own games. They all maintain their own art styles and the way that you expect them to look. In MultiVersus, they decided we're going to have a very cartoony, overly simplified aesthetic that every character will conform to. And my issue with that is that's too transformational for some of them. It just makes them look off, and it degrades the value of the cosmetics, because to take the Batman 1989 costume, that's something that when it was designed was very much to be in live action, in dark shots, all of that thought went into it. But then they take it and they just paste it over this cartoony looking thing. It just looks completely off to me.
Right.
Maybe some people might not see it that way, but...
No, I think that's a prime example.
I do, and it bothers me, and it makes me, first of all, I'm not likely to spend $20 on one skin. Maybe $5. I would pay as much as $5 for one skin. But for that? No. That looks like crap to me. So, to me, that's another thing that weighs it down, is you see these characters from all these IPs. They're like Arya Stark. Would you even know who that's supposed to be if it didn't have her name labeled on it?
From the voice lines alone, because they did get the original actress to voice the character in this, you can tell. And, I mean, if you know the voice lines and you know the familiarity with the show, you could piece it together without seeing the character's name necessarily. But, yeah, I mean, the artwork is drastically different from how the character looks. So,
yeah,
that was another one, too. It's you would have assumed they were going to put more Game of Thrones characters in there, since Arya is probably not even, the top 5 of the most popular characters on that show. I don't know, maybe number 5, but yeah, I don't know. It's like another one of these things where it's like, yeah, I can understand why you put this character in, but I'm sure there's probably more appropriate characters that could have been added first,
The characters should have been allowed to have their own styling and aesthetics. Like, imagine if...
Yeah, that was a key thing.
You had, whatever the default look of Batman was for this game, but then for, say, I go back to Batman again, say animated series Batman, instead of being the, like, exact shape and dimensions of the default game's character model, he has, like, cell shading and looks pretty much one-to-one with the Bruce Timm animation. That would have been way cooler, in my opinion.
Yeah, the thing is, we saw that skin in, I think it was Arkham City that used that originally as, like, an unlockable skin.
It did, but it didn't have cell shading, but guess what?
It worked.
Modders are awesome, and now in Arkham Knight, you can get the animated series skin, and it has all the cell shading, so, like, when you're moving around and the light catches his cape and his cowl, you see, like, the blue sheen. It's perfect. It's amazing. And the game, like, already had a built-in cell shader for, like, something having to do with Mad Hatter or whatever, so it just works. That's actually a perfect comparison, is all these new mods coming out in Arkham Knight, ever since they've discovered a way to import character models, look great because they keep the styling of whatever it is they're from.
Right.
MultiVersus should have done that.
Yeah, so obviously we've talked about the monetization a lot here, but it's something we've got to keep harping on because that's obviously probably the biggest reason why it did fail. So, I didn't even explicitly write it here, but, it's like there's a very specific mentality that goes into making the microtransaction system work. To your point, it's like you want a lot of these $2 fishes, right? A lot of the people who are willing to spend small amounts of money on a game like this, just because those transactions do add up when you have a reliable user base. If you have 150,000 people playing this on a daily basis, and, half of them are paying $2 for a skin every other day, that adds up quickly,
Yeah, it shouldn't be underestimated, the value in spacing out small purchases, because like they were originally called, microtransactions. A couple dollars is a micro, $20 is a macro.
Yeah.
Like, it's much easier for me to say over time, okay, I'll spend a few dollars on this skin, a month later on that skin, and before you know it, I have spent $20 on the game. Versus all at once, and I get this thing that doesn't even look that great. It's like, nah, I'm a $0 spender now.
Honestly, if they had made like a $10 battle pass that had like legitimately good skins in it, that could have also been viable. It's like, that's not a harsh number if you're actually getting that value out of it. But people obviously didn't see that value, which is part of the reason people weren't spending that.
You know why they probably didn't do that? Is because they're saying, why should we put all of these skins for $10 in one battle pass, so one $10 spend, when we're trying to sell them individually for like 20 or 15?
Well, it's simple sales psychology, right? You offer something at a discount to encourage repeat sales. You offer one skin at a 20% off discount. That might incentivize you to buy that one skin, but you offer the entire battle pass off at a rate that's basically comparable to getting 5 skins. You're probably more likely to buy the battle pass than you are those 5 skins.
That would have required them to think about it.
The thing is, they have no costs on any of these things aside from man hours. It doesn't cost them anything to make a skin. So they're not spending anything to actually make the skin beyond, whatever labor is involved with that. So you're really in a point where you can play with the prices a lot and really not have much risk associated with that. Now, look, that all being said, it's really the gambling mentality that we were talking about earlier that really is part of the reason some of these things work. Like, you can have some big fishes and still be successful. You can have those people who waste all of their money on like little shit cosmetics because you have people who just have that mentality of needing more and wanting everything and wanting the full experience and buying founders packs and buying everything that the game has to offer. But
we can also talk about the rifts with this.
So the thing is, to get a big fish like that, you need to have a reliable user base. It's something that really only comes when you have numbers to support those.
Mm-hmm.
And again, part of it comes with the content you're sharing too. It's like, if you don't have the skins that are viable, if you don't have a price point that's reasonable, if you don't have something that is that drop dead thing that you have to stand apart, you're just not going to be able to attract that same audience.
And another thing that's insidious, which is related to gambling, is the rifts were pretty much a phone game. You know how phone games, they'll let you download for free and you progress a certain amount, and then it says, you failed, but you can buy more tries, or you could wait 24 hours. They try to do the same shit with the Rifts.
Yes.
They had this gem system. First of all, when I saw it, I couldn't even figure out what the hell I was looking at. But then when I realized what it was, and I realized what you had to do to get the Agent Smith, I knew immediately. I could smell it. The greed, the stench. So they have these like little upgrades you could put on your character that will increase your damage output and defense and things like that when you're playing these PvE modes. But it's like to get them like leveled up to a certain degree, you have to grind, and they make it so that the way you upgrade them is you have to play all the events in each rift, and some of them you can't access unless you have like a specific cosmetic or a specific character. So not only are they time gatekeeping or grind gatekeeping the like some of the content that you can unlock, but they're also making it so that you have to spend in other ways to even do that. So say you're locked out of some of the nodes, as they're called, in the rift because you don't have the cosmetic.
Right.
Well, then how are you going to upgrade your gems now? Well, you either have to drag someone in to play with you, because there was like challenges for each of the matches, and then doing all the challenges would get you the experience points for the gems. It's so convoluted. So if you can't get someone to play with you and get those extra points, guess what? There's an option in the cash shop to directly purchase gem upgrades. Buy it. Buy it now. And that is the time-saving aspect of the pain points put into the monetization. Absolutely insidious, but guess what? No one was buying that. No one was buying that.
And that also highlights the point of in-game, it's like, first of all, you just have a ridiculous amount of money spent in-game if you actually want to buy something using actual cash, right? But you have so many fucking in-game currencies that are impossible to keep track of. It's like, for something that should be a simple process, you know, I buy this, I give you money, I get something in return. You now have to buy multiple different currencies, essentially, to buy one skin, or, you know, bad example, but it's just convoluted how you have Gleamium, you have gold, you have cookies, you have seasonal tokens, you have perk currency, you have battle pass XP, you have gems.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. When they have the random events like the Halloween or the Christmas or the summer,
it's
whatever.
It's just another fucking currency that you're also able to buy in-game.
Yeah.
And you sometimes need to buy that currency to buy something because you can't spend it on some other currency that you already bought.
Each event has its own new currency, and guess what? So you have to like do the event missions to get those currencies, or like log in every day or something, or both. And then you use the event currency to get another smaller denominational currency to get one or two of the new costumes that are specific to the event. But guess what? You can also buy that currency, the small denominational one, with real money, or you can buy the larger denominational one that you can get through grinding with money. And I actually checked out the last event that they had. Hang on, I have a screenshot somewhere. I meant to do the math on this, but I won't bother doing it on the fly, but it'll just speak to my point. So they had some, Frozen Flakes. That was the name of the event.
Right.
So, let's see. There's, I think Ice Shards was the thing that you get. Here it is. So there's... God, this makes no sense. Okay, the name of the currency that you get through grinding is Frozen Flakes, and you use those to get Ice Shards.
So there's literally two in-game currencies in the same season for different things.
Yeah, and it was like 6 Ice Shards to get... That was like the highest price for one of the cosmetics, but it limits you to only being able to get 6 Ice Shards. But guess what? You can buy the Ice Shards with the premium currency, or you can buy the snowflakes with premium currency. Now the conversion rate from snowflakes to Ice Shards is 6,000 snowflakes for 1 Ice Shard. And it's 500 premium currency. This is going somewhere, I promise. 500 premium currency for 1 Ice Shard. So say if you wanted 6 ice shards, that would be, $30? 5 times 6, 3,000 Gleamium, that's $30. Okay, so that would be for 1 character skin, by the way. And then it's 400 snowflakes for 1 ice shard. It takes 6,000 snowflakes, so that would mean 400 is how many you get for 50 in-game currency. So that's 50 cents. So it would be 15 of those 15 purchases of the snowflakes to get 1 ice shard, and 15 times 0.5 would be $7.50. So 750 times 6 is 45. So here's the point I'm getting to. You could either use basically direct money to get the 6 ice shards for $30 to get 1 character skin, or you spend $45 to pointlessly get the snowflakes to do the same thing. Who would do that? Why would they let you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like trying to exchange currency. Like, I was in Germany last month, and I still have a wallet full of euros, so it's like if I tried to go to my bagel shop and spend, euros on this bagel, they're obviously not going to give me a bagel, so you have to go exchange it for dollars, which could be more or less than the euro, depending on the time you bought it. So, no, I mean, look, currencies are fucking complicated no matter how you approach it, but yeah, it's like they're basically going out of their way to make their own online store that much more convoluted, Yeah,
this is why you failed. Good. Even though I'm still sad the game's shutting down, because I kind of like it, despite all those things.
Yeah, it's
I like the idea of it.
No, I'm in the same boat. It's like the good parts about it do make it worth coming back to and worth replaying, but I mean, there's just so much bullshit associated with it that, like, I don't know, these developers should probably be facing some sort of punishment or some sort of retribution for what they're seeing here. But, it sucks that the players have to suffer this entire time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of this is going to get repetitive since we've talked about it already, but lack of community engagement and marketing support. Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't much effort from WB to promote this thing. I mean, we mentioned their whole promotion with the NHL, which didn't really seem to do anything. There was really no advertising for it beyond that initial phase. Like, I don't know. Maybe
I think they had like 1 tournament.
Yeah, it just wasn't the kind of thing that they really seemed to have a lot of faith in from the beginning. And again, maybe,
they got a shout out at the Game Awards one of the years. They got Best Fighting Game, and now it's like a couple years later, it's shut down. Go figure.
Yeah. I think, did they actually get it? I remember them being nominated for it, but...
I think they did get it, yeah.
Okay, so like we said, no real clear long-term plan, it seemed. Again, it seems like if they came up with Banana Guard in a weekend, and that's actually the story of how that happened, like they didn't really have any plans for a lot of these characters aside from, the Beetlejuices and the Black Adams that they did that were clearly to tie in with existing movies that WB was putting out. It tells me that they really didn't have much long-term plans for any of these. Like, it just shows a lack of foresight and a lack of planning that, is indicative of the rest of the game not lasting as long as it did.
Yeah, it was, hey, this is a cool idea. Yeah, it is. You should do that. Okay, here's some money. Go do that. But the thing is, even if they didn't have all these cross-promotional things to tie in, were they really not allowed to put in whoever the heck they want? I mean, I think they were, because there's random characters that have been released, like, all the Adventure Time ones, or whoever else that didn't have a marketing thing, so they just had to keep a consistent release schedule. You have a lot of DC characters, put in Green Lantern, put in The Flash, put in, I don't know, Martian Manhunter, whoever the hell. Put in all the rest of the Looney Tunes. No Daffy Duck still? We're never gonna get Daffy Duck. No Duck Dodgers? What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, again, it seems like the kind of thing that if they had played it right, it could have been a cash cow for WB for years to come. Especially, look, it's a free-to-play game. If they had just promoted it right, you could have easily maintained a steady player base with the whole thing. And obviously, they chose not to go about it that way. It's such an easy thing to advertise now, too.
And again, like, look at something like Marvel Rivals. I know that's just Marvel only, and they are releasing the Fantastic Four now, I guess, sort of to coincide with the start of the marketing campaign for the movie. But they're putting in whoever the heck they want, pretty much. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. Maybe they are getting directions from Marvel. But they have a consistent release with characters so far. And because of how successful it is, I don't think that's going to drop off anytime soon. The point is, we're the characters of the content, you want them to be pumping out. That is your priority, aside from making sure the game is, as bug-free as it can be.
Yeah, so obviously we did talk a little bit about Player First Games, essentially being a studio that was propped up to build this thing. And look, we're hearing stuff from behind the scenes. We don't know how much of it's accurate versus, just disgruntled employees saying shit or, people trying to pass the buck.
It was one guy who makes it sound like that because of the specific sect of the industry he's in, he suggests that it's rather small, and implies that he knows people who were working on the game, and that's where he heard these things. That's the implication, at least was my takeaway. He's not directly working on the game. I'm assuming it's a he. But, it's someone who's worked on the inside and could make, in the very least, educated guesses about these sort of things and what's going on, if not having been directly told.
Yeah, again, it's like you'll never really know what's going on behind closed doors unless you were behind those closed doors too. Again, it's like a lot of people are blaming WB for being too hands-off with the project in the first place and, giving it essentially to the studio that had basically no experience building something like this before. And again, if their plan was to make this, this legacy brand promoting thing that could have lasted for years and could have had a consistent player base, it's like they really went about it in the worst way possible. Now, Player First Games, again, we don't know too much about who the people are running it. It's like, we know the one game director was a guy named Tony, I can't pronounce his last name, I'm going to try. I think it's Hun, Huynh. We've heard secondhand from his employees that the guy apparently has an Elon Musk type ego where he's just basically not able to accept criticism and, just very full of his own genius. And, it's like he put out this whole long post basically saying, oh, I value collaboration. Oh, we had such a great environment. What we're hearing from his employees basically suggests the opposite, that he was essentially basically dictating from the top down versus trying to get everyone's feedback and trying to.
Yeah, or that he was unfocused, didn't know where to direct energy properly or oversight. He would have an idea and say, okay, let's work on this thing, and then he'd turn his attention somewhere else. And that his playtesters were essentially his friends, and they weren't necessarily giving him very useful feedback. And if someone pointed that out, he wouldn't hear any of it. That's the claim being made. And you know what? I believe it, because look at the results.
So that's the thing. When you have a game that fails like this, you have to look at leadership as being, ultimately the determining factor. If he hadn't, it could just be, these could be valid criticisms of him, but ultimately if he's hiring people who aren't making the game better, or if he's ultimately hiring people who are willing to basically shit talk him behind his back, what does that say about him, So again, it's like, it is a failure on multiple levels, but ultimately it seems to be coming back to this guy. Again, we're not there in the room, we can't really, this is all with a grain of salt, so, take it as is.
And last thing I just want to throw in here, because this just came out in the game, they added these new rifts, which are labeled as roguelite, and by that, it essentially means that you have a limited amount of chances to get through it, so you have lives basically, and the lives and your damage percentage persist through each of the rounds. So they have this, and the only incentive to doing them is to get these new skins that were advertised right before this Season 5 came out. Now, I was looking around the shop first, because I didn't know that they were hidden in these new Rift things. And I'm like, where are those new skins? Why aren't they just... First of all, why aren't the skins just available for free? Because, the game's shutting down. When the Avengers game was shutting down, they just made all that shit free, because you don't even have the microtransaction, the currency purchase enabled. So why are these still locked? But anyway, so I couldn't find any of these, and so I'm just scrolling through all of the menus because there's so many, it's a mess. And I see these new rifts, and it's like, okay, each of the difficulties you have a chance. It's RNG, by the way. You have a chance to get whatever the new skin is and some other random crap like profile pictures.
Yeah, it's like a 2% chance on the maximum difficulty, too. You're most likely not getting the skin unless you grind.
All of this filler garbage, no one cares about profile icons or banners or whatever that crap is. Focus on the character cosmetics. Holy shit. But Imagine when the game is dying, the last middle finger you throw up is, hey, you want to do the most boring thing in the game that we put in, and not only do that, but do it over and over because it's RNG, so basically it's like gambling. So you have to go through these 5 rounds that get harder because you're losing lives and you're accumulating damage for a tiny, tiny % chance at getting one costume. And the first one they have is just pink Nubia. It's just a palette swap, not even...
Yeah.
Ugh. Like, what do you even say to this? It's just...
Yeah, I mean, I think we already covered rifts at some point. I mean, it's not a good part of the game to begin with. It's really just it's their version of like an adventure mode from Smash, where you're trying to go around from level to level and doing different things, and they're trying to put a loose narrative around it, but it's like none of the characters are voiced in that part, and there's no animation between scenes, so it's like, it's just very tacked on, put together. Like, why did you even include this, you know?
I just can't describe how much it's just completely illogical, stupid, and yeah, I mean, this is why it's shutting down. It's garbage like this is the reason it's a complete failure, and there's really no other way to put it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like these parts like this that were just tacked on and clearly had no real, I don't want to say passion, but no real energy behind them, I guess. It overshadows the good parts of the game that people actually come in to play, you know?
Yeah, because I see that, and I physically just want to hit Alt F4 on my keyboard, like, no. Just no.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked about the live service model pretty extensively. We've talked about how this business model works extensively. So what did go right with this game in the first place? Because, I mean, there's a shit ton that went wrong. We've basically spent the last hour talking about it.
Yeah, last over an hour. Well, to begin with, we like the idea of it. As we've said ad nauseum, it could have been anything. You could have had anybody in this game. You could have had it all. And now you get nothing. Sorry, we're supposed to be positive. I like the characters. They were unique. They controlled pretty well. Their movesets were appropriate to the source material. And that's something you really want to see. Oh, some of the... this is something we really didn't talk about. It seemed like there could have been more stages, or at least the stages could have been more unique in their design, but a few of them had really great background music. Like, especially the one I think of is the Game of Thrones one.
Oh, yeah, that was actually pretty epic.
And the Dexter one. Really good compositions, reprisals. I'm not sure how to refer to it technically, but I just listened to those because it's good music. But they didn't get the Superman music. It felt like there was just more that could have been added. That wasn't.
Yeah, and I mean, they did add more stages towards the end, considering, I mean, there were only like, 5 or 6 stages when the game first started, and it's expanded pretty extensively beyond that. So, that's something that maybe they did hear the fans on, but I don't know, it still left a lot to be desired.
I have never watched Steven Universe. I am never going to watch Steven Universe. I barely even knew what Steven Universe was. And now, because of this damn game, I can't get the Steven Universe theme out of my head. I hear it every time I open the game. I'm like, oh, not again. It's a decent theme.
Okay. So, what else went right? Gameplay, despite, our complaints about it being very Smash-like and not very unique, it is just a sort of a game that's designed for broad appeal. The controls are simple enough that even if you're not the most effective gamer, you can probably still enjoy this. If you're playing against friends or playing on the lower level. My
complaint is it's not Smash-like enough. Just make it 1-to-1 and then all my skills can translate directly.
The 2v2 mode, I mean, you do have that in Smash, so I don't think it's really that unique of a feature, but at the same time, it's like ranked 2v2 and 2v2 battles being a main focal point of the game. Really, it's great if you want to do twos quickly, or if you want to grab a friend and just play a few rounds against a couple other people.
I think some of the characters were balanced around teaming up in mind. because they sort of have the roles that they fill, the support, the tank.
Well, that was another change that they sort of took away between the beta and the main game, or maybe it was the start of the main game. They did have like dedicated support classes and dedicated other classes. I just remember Steven being a support character when they first introduced him that really didn't have much combat skills, and they sort of did away with that when they brought it back to the main game to make all characters a little more combat focused. But anyway, yeah, I think you're right that they did sort of develop some characters just to be team-based and, got away with that as the game moved on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the core mechanics I do think were solid. We talked in the episode 91 about how the attacks actually seemed to be effective. Everything felt like it landed. And, that's all sort of subjective. But yeah, I mean, you don't get that in every single fighter.
Sometimes, though, and I've had two separate people point this out when I was streaming gameplay, it seems like I throw so many attacks at the opponent because I play ones mainly, and it's like all these things I'm throwing at them go through them, or they're just able to dodge through everything.
Right.
It's pretty frustrating sometimes, and sometimes the hitboxes aren't always what they look like they should be. Like they're either too large or too small. It's weird.
Yeah, what else? So, again, despite it being kind of a mess monetization-wise, it was free to play. At the end of the day, you could absolutely enjoy this game and put in a lot of hours without having to spend a single cent.
Yeah, which is what we did.
Yeah, like, I don't think I would have played it or played it as much if it was a paid game. I don't think I would have wasted more time on it if I had to pay $50-$60 just to get into the basic version of it. But
case in point, if Nickelodeon All-Stars was free, I probably would have tried it.
Yeah, same. It's like I have no interest in paying for something like that, too, if it's untested,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think the promise of long-term growth, like, again, our expectations going into it are also part of the reason I think, it drove a lot of players to it in the first place. It's like, because it had this expectation and because it had so much potential, it seemed promising. And look, I could absolutely see them bringing this back if they had a new team behind it. The content's all there. The bones are there. If you really did revamp some of these things we talked about, I seriously think it could work. And, I just hope... WB is never going to listen to this or actually take fan criticism, but...
Listen, here's the thing, WB. Take the millions of dollars that you would have sunk into something completely pointless and back up a truck of money to... Sakurai's house and say, hey, we know you're retired and you're done with Smash, but do you want to make Smash again just for us? It's the only way this thing can ever come back.
So we've been talking a lot here. I think we've gotten to all the points we really want to cover here. If there's anything else we can really leave it with, it's that there's obviously a right way and a wrong way to do this kind of game. And I think we've outlined why this has sort of imploded on itself and what it could have done to do better. But yeah, anyway, it's a missed opportunity if nothing else.
My final thoughts are that I'm actually kind of sad that it'll be shut down.
It's like it's making me want to play it more than it did, a month ago. So, yeah.
It's almost like I still am half expecting there to be more added to it because it all seems so possible. If that makes any sense. It seemed like nothing was out of the question.
Well, it feels like, when the beta ended and, they gave it sort of this timetable. It's like, I don't think anyone actually expected it to be over or end for as long as it did. But, yeah, I mean, here we are. It's like, you always have the potential for something to come back or always have the potential for someone to do something with it.
Like a unofficial fan mod or server thing?
Yeah, I mean, I could see someone bringing it back from the dead or using the actual engine or the bones to reconstruct it. Again, that would kind of depend on you having a modding community that's actually interested in doing something with it or having a community that actually wants to do a development on it.
This happened when Titanfall 2 was getting endlessly getting DDoSed. Someone made a modded client where you could connect to that and play with people online that way instead of having to connect to the official EA servers. Mm-hmm. So maybe something similar could be done with this. There were a lot of data mined files pertaining to certain characters that are obviously never going to be in the game now, but if any of those files have like a partially complete character, maybe modders can get to that and finish them or use them to turn into other new characters that weren't even thought of before. But I don't know. There's like so few people playing, who's even going to be interested in working on it on their own time for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the nail in the coffin, right? It's like they hemorrhaged so much of the community around this really just over the last year. But I mean, even before it was out of beta, it's like this thing was clearly not going to succeed without major changes, you know? No, you just don't have that community there that really wants this to succeed. So as sad as it is, and as sad as it is for those of us who did play from the beginning, it's like, yeah, I mean, we knew this was going to end eventually.
It's over.
It's over.
And so is this episode.
Finally. Okay. With all that being said, we'll probably do some more of these. I don't think we really talked about the future of the podcast, but we'll probably do some more of these. Probably should have gotten more preamp going into this.
Yeah, expect some more content, because guess what? We revamped the website. Go check it out. Now, when we say go to utterlynonsense.com, you should be able to go there and see everything you need to see. All the videos, all the audios. We'll even put some like text updates. We can do that now too. All the links are there, so check it out. You might listen. Results may vary. Not gonna lie. We use the website builder, and sometimes it's a bit slow, maybe slightly unstable. But
really selling it well, John.
Hey, on my end, it works. Okay. So check it out. You have a good time. You don't gotta go anywhere else, but if you must go anywhere else, you check out the links. We're on all the platforms. We're on all the social medias. All right, we're all over the place. You're gonna get sick of seeing us, okay? And we're back.
And with all that being said, leave the music, play us out.